This review was canceled due to theft. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, my friends, it has happened again. More guitars that I imported get stolen in transit. About 3 months ago, I ordered this beautiful blue Les Paul Custom. I purchased it at a shop over in Japan, they sent it over to me, the tracking number was going fine, and then it just stops updating once it gets to customs. It was a 2 to 3 month process, but after I posted that video, within about a week we found it on eBay. So I purchased it back, got a refund on my initial transaction, and at the end of the day, it was all hunky-dory. Assuming the shop in Japan had insurance on the package anyway. So I thought that was a one-off weird situation. But lo and behold, it happened again. Right now on eBay is a Stratocaster that I purchased. So by our tracking here, you can see it was shipped on November 1st. It went through Japan's processing just fine and left the country on the 5th. And then it comes into Chicago and it goes into US Customs somewhere in mid-November. I'm recording this episode at the very end of March. Naturally, I've been waiting quite some time for this tracking number to update because I get it. The customs, they get so much stuff. It might take time to process, right? But I found that if things don't process within 3 to 4 months, they just take your package and auction it off. I'm going to blur the seller's name in this one because please guys, don't contact this guy because he's not the one that stole it. Don't post conspiracy theories in the comments either. This guy just buys from US auctions, which is where customs and like damaged UPS packages liquidate all their inventory that they don't need. So things that US Customs confiscate or criminals who get their assets seized eventually goes onto a site like govdeals.com. I'm not exactly sure if this is where my guitars are being sold. It might just be a local auction, but like right now, if we look for some guitars, you've got a couple of here, but I've never really seen anything good at this particular website, except for a Jimmy Page Les Paul Custom one time. So I'm probably wondering, what even is this thing? It's the Fender Ken No. 1 Experiment guitar. So I picked this up just to review and demo it, not because I thought it was the prettiest looking Stratocaster ever, but it had some unique specs. It's got a weird golden comfort carve to it. The pickguard appears to have a clear plate over top of it that exposes all the pickups. So I thought that was kind of weird and quirky. It looks a little bit strange around our toggle switch. You've got dual tone and a single volume control. And hey, it's gold hardware on a white Stratocaster. It's got the big 70s style headstock that has a matching white finish. And then to make it even more interesting, it has a gold colored tremolo cavity as well as a control cavity. And they've got the clear plate over this and nothing over top of that. I even got some nice wood grain on this example. You don't always win the wood grain lottery. I mean, it's nothing fantastic, but it would have been enough to make me happy. And hey, this thing even has Fender locking tuners on it. Now, if I remember correctly, there have been custom shop versions of this before. This was just like their bulk production release. And then they also came out with this interesting, almost Paisley-like version that doesn't have any type of a pickguard, but they called this one Paisley Fantasy, and it was a Fender custom shop. And these things aren't cheap. Including all import duties and taxes, shipping it to here, it would run you somewhere between $1,600 and $2,000. But sadly, doesn't look like it's ever gonna get here. But that's just the first story. So remember earlier how I said UPS, FedEx, USPS, if the insurance pays out and they take possession of the item, the way they make their money back is by selling those items at these liquidation auctions. And look what showed up recently. Gibson Les Paul Custom Shop electric guitar, Centipede. So about a year ago, I had a really bad day. I had finally bought a nice Centipede, and it arrived like this. Giant headstock break. I mean, that was a brutal day for me, but I decided to continue on the review as much as I could. But another dealer buddy of mine sent me this listing saying, hey, look what this is. It's the same serial number, Centipede number 27. So it took a little over a year, but it finally shows back up. So I was really expecting this thing to be kind of like dirt cheap. But looking through these photos, it's like, uh-oh, we better read the description. Condition, used, light scratches, tested works great. We're not disclosing the headstock repair. Now, when you're viewing these photos, unfortunately, the area that you need to see is not shown. Like, if I remember correctly, it broke just slightly under this. So naturally, I had to reach out to these guys. I said, hey, friendly heads up, this is my old guitar. When I got it, it was broken. There's gotta be a headstock repair somewhere on that guitar. You might wanna disclose that. And then I linked them to the video and all that. And like within 5 minutes, they're like, thank you for telling us. They instantly ended the listing. And as of right now, I don't know what they're gonna do with it. it. I would imagine they will relist it, or it could be they paid way too much for it at auction considering its actual condition. But here's what's kind of fascinating to me. I never realized that insurance companies would actually send the guitar out for repair and then take it to auction. I always thought they were just as is. You are buying it, how it sits. And if I remember correctly, this was insured for like about $5,000, which I would have rather had the guitar than the money because most people, when the Centipede show up, they ask way too much for them. They're cool, but they're not 8 to 10K cool in my opinion. And unfortunately, I have not found another one to replace that yet. But naturally, that was a lot of money for them to pay out, so they've got this guitar. It appears they might actually send it out to have it repaired to get a better value. It's either that or this seller purchased it a long time ago, had it repaired, and then whoever made the listing. I mean, this seems to be more than just a one-man operation here. This is a large company, so it's reasonable to expect if they did do the repair, it might have just been the listing guy that didn't know that it had been repaired. Because from what we can see, I mean, it appears to be a very clean job. I thought for sure we would have had to have got rid of the Gibson custom decal. So I'm not exactly too sure the story on that. However, if it came back up for sale cheap enough, I think it would be fun to have that one, just because of the whole story behind it. But I think I would probably max out at about $2,500 to add that to my collection. So just a reminder, do not look these guys up on eBay and send them hate. There's no reason for it. As far as I'm concerned, them taking it down instantaneously was a very stand-up business operation. But sadly, that is not where our story ends today. What if I told you I'm going through this again? Here's another order I purchased out of Japan about a month later. So it does all the good stuff again, leaves the country by the 24th, gets into Chicago, and then this one, it says inbound out of customs. That's what I was running into on the last one. When you're trying to get help on this, you call up USPS and they say, nah, it's in customs. That's not our division. We can't advise you. So then you reach out to the seller and they talk to EMS, who they sent it through, who USPS is the final deliverer of. And then they say, no, it's in customs. We can't do anything. So you're just stuck in this limbo. They give you a customs number that nobody ever answers the phone, and it's just a robot that never actually gets you to somebody that you can talk to. And unfortunately, this new package has 2 guitars in it. I thought I would document the interesting Made in Japan Elemental series. So I picked up one of these Telecasters, and I picked up one of these Jazzmasters, just because I think Jazzmasters and Tellies, they're the coolest ones of the Fender operation. If you happen to frequent these auctions and you see one of these Elementals, yeah, that was probably meant to be my guitar. Now, thankfully, these are brand new guitars. Unfortunately, they may or may not be out of production at this time. So I'm hoping I at least get my money back, but then we'll probably run into the situation of conversion rates and I'll still end up losing money. So I'll probably just opt to have the money forwarded onto a new guitar because Fender Japan does so many cool things. But unfortunately, that means I have to switch over to a new shipping courier for these international packages because I just can't trust EMS or USPS and the customs process that they have to put it through, because clearly there's some shady stuff going on here. Because I could understand if I was notified that, hey, we need more information about this package, or hey, we think this good is fake, or any type of notification at all. But I get nothing. They just act like the package disappears. Now, it could be that the shipping labels got damaged, but this has happened too many times for me to believe that. It was just this weird 3-month period where things just went wrong. I've got other things since then, but they weren't brand new and they weren't coming from Japan. So here's what I'm thinking. They are purposefully discriminating against things coming from Japan, and they're just holding them in customs until that 3-month period passes and then they can auction them off. Something seems to be fishy, and it needs to be looked into. So hopefully these last 2 guitars eventually get to me, but we might as well talk about them here for a second. So what makes the Elemental series kind of cool is they have these white and ebony finishes, but you've got humbuckers in here and it doesn't have your regular Telly bridge. It's just master volume, master tone. You've got a smaller style pickguard in perloid, and it's like hyper modernized, right? You've got your comfort cut on the back. I think it had some modernized specs as far as the fretboard goes. Also, you have the cut down heel, but I like this comfort cut because they had to design this backplate in such a unique way to make it still happen, and it used the modern style tuners instead of the vintage ones, although not locking. But I really like this Jazzmaster because it almost has like the Troublemaker vibes to it, the Troublemaker Tellys that we talked about in this episode, because it's got the Nashville-esque style bridge and a stop bar tailpiece, which that's my least favorite thing about Jazzmasters is their funky trems. I don't use them enough in my playing style, so I'd prefer a stop bar. But looking at these photos, that's more of a flat black finish. so it probably would have been kind of satiny. So this is all very disheartening. I'm hoping this dealer doesn't stop selling me stuff. That's why we switched carriers to see if we get better luck. But I've got some other Fender Japans on the way right now. So as long as those make it okay, the fun will still continue. I love Fender Japan. You just gotta jump through way too many hoops to get the things. But since we've got some time left tonight, let's do a little bit of additional guitar hunting. This Explorer showed up this morning. It's from the year 2006, listed as a natural finish, but check out the wood grain on that. That's gonna have a nice chatoyant effect over it. It'll dance in the sunlight, and it looks like they modified it to have gold hardware, so it kind of looks more like a 76 reissue style. But since I'm more of a quirky guitar collector, I like rare guitars. When it comes to collecting bass models, B-A-S-E, I like to look for the extraordinary ordinary examples, as I call them, you know. A regular 50s Les Paul standard. What's a cool extraordinary ordinary one? Maybe if it has a cool figured back like my 2000s era ones that I have. Or maybe it has some figuring within the neck. Or maybe it's a prototype like in this big collection that I bought. But even if this thing is just like 3 pieces of mahogany slapped together, it sure does look cool. I thought for sure it was a custom shop. Nice dark fretboard as well. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, maybe check it out. He doesn't want to ship it. Next up, another Explorer, this time from 1984. Wow, that's an insane price tag. But let's see its condition. If it's absolute minty, maybe. So far, not quite looking like that. So this is the first year of the shred metal Explorers. That was made popular by many bands, but James Hetfield is a big user of one in this particular color. I was hoping this thing would be like minty, because then maybe I could be like, okay, yeah, it's a crazy price, but you're not going to find these in too good of shape. Just the whole alder body and maple necks, these things are very prone to finish checking. You got some chips up here, dings, there's some finish checking by the knot. But it's always cool to see a white one that doesn't have a caler. In today's market, I don't see him getting that. Conservative estimate, I would probably say about $25,000 to $3,000 on that. Because usually this era of Explorer will only bring this kind of price tag if it's like a Union Jack or something. However, I think we're only a few months away from Gibson reintroducing these things into the lineup. The 80s Explorer, we were teased that about 6 months ago, but new models keep dropping all the time. So I think we will get these soon. So maybe once those come out, it might drive up collector interest again, and then the vintage ones will become slightly more valuable. We'll have to see. Speaking of cool models to see, here's a 2019 limited edition Firebird 1, AMS exclusive. You can also check out my cool iBird. It started life as one of these before it got its cool paint job. But I wanted to share this one, A, because this is a very desirable model for anybody who wants a Firebird 1, and B, because somebody modified it with one of the vintage style trims, and in fact, that does look vintage. I get this question all the time, what's the difference between nickel and chrome? It's hard to tell, especially when brand new. But here's the big difference. Chrome, when it ages, still looks like this. Nickel gets this grayish look to it. It looks awesome as it ages. So you got a little bit of a nickel chrome mix match going on here, but that could easily be remedied. I really like this color on this particular Firebird 1. Not my favorite headstock design in the world, but it is what it is when you're buying a modern Firebird. But how much is he looking for on this gray beauty? $2,000, that's about what they go for. Some guys ask as much as $2,500. In fact, looking at recent sales, I would say that's actually a pretty good deal. If you don't mind the vintage trim anyways, because remember, you can't just take that off and have no evidence, you're going to have 3 holes in the guitar. But thankfully, if you don't even want to use this, you can set this up as a wrap tail, and then you can just leave that on there for the looks. Next up, we have a classic custom Lite. Man, I miss when these things were still in production. This one has a particularly nice flame top. Custom Lites aren't my favorite, but I do like this era of Gibson history. That's a nice one. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.